Hello folks, this is DM Mag here, aka Magris, and I was asked to make a video of explaining how to use my Classless hack. So this is version 3, the alpha test of my Classless system using Pathfinder as the backbone. Due to the popularity of Pathfinder and my familiarity with it, I chose this in order to make a Classless XP buy version with a little bit more freedom and some adjustments that I think will shake things up and give a new fun experience to not only building characters but to playing the game. And we're testing my latest update version of it. So there's going to be balance changes. There's going to be issues that arise because I'm a single guy doing sweeping balance changes, and I rely on my player base to help me playtest them. So that's what this is for. Moving on. This spreadsheet, you can see, has a lot of tabs. There's a lot of information. And like you know, if you this is a 1920 by 1080 monitor, you can see it goes off the screen. You have to scroll. So the first thing is there's a lot of tabs. You will have to scroll, both up and down and left to right. That's just there's so much information, and everyone's monitor is different. Most of this was built on a monitor twice this resolution, so there's gonna be, you know, instances where you're gonna have to scroll. That's the first key thing. Second is, this is a combination of Pathfinder's property, my property, and Wizards of the Coast reference stuff, so please be cool. Don't steal my work. I've worked very hard on this. That would be much appreciated. So what you're going to want to do is first read the version 3 rules changes. It will explain some basics to you. These basics are covered here, and I'm not going to read them to you. You can read that on your own. If I read everything to you, this is going to take twice as long. I did a table for attribute changes, and this is just like the table, the stuff here. This is, you know, basic ability scores on the SRD. Some of the stuff is no change from the SRD, so you would just go here and use this, what's listed here. The only thing that changes are dexterity and constitution, right here. I have altered the way action economy works, and low dex people, 0 you can't move, 1 you're staggered and can only move. You can't actually attack. You don't get to actually be able to attack as a character until you have at least 4 dex. Simply put, you aren't capable enough of moving in those 6 seconds to be able to defend yourself against a skilled opponent. That's at like 3 dex or lower. That's why I've done this. At 10 or 11 to 13 is your basic round. You have your free action, move action, standard action, swift action. That's your basic round. After that, you go higher, you start getting your iterative attacks that you normally get from base attack bonus. I moved that to dexterity here. It'll allow for more explosive early level combats. So what you have at 14 or higher dex is a full attack. You get 2 attacks, just like if you had 6 base attack bonus with a 6 level fighter. You get that at level 1 if you have a 14 to 17 dexterity. If you have an 18 to 21, you get your full BAB attack, and then a -5 BAB attack, and then a -10 BAB attack. So you have 3 attacks. You have your 2 iteratives, and it goes on from there. At 22 dex to 3 full plus 3 extra attacks, all the way to at 35 extra attacks. The other thing is endurance score. In order to balance this, I have moved all damage to strength. So there is no longer dex to damage in this version. that would make this super broken. You would, I give weapon finesse and agile maneuvers for free to dex-based users, and it would make it stupid broken if I had dex advantage. So that's been pulled. Everything goes to strength now. I've also added endurance score to Constitution, and this is to mitigate the spend everything on dexterity and everything on strength, do tons of damage setup. It also allows for some tactical maneuvers where the really quick elf will eventually get tired, and the 10-foot ogre with a 22 Constitution outlasts him. He doesn't get tired as long, and I want to implement that. It's not just about hit points and fort saves, it's also about endurance. So each of these has, it's basically 1/2 your Constitution score equals your endurance. Your endurance is the number of rounds you can act. It takes, consecutive full round actions, running, swimming, fighting, etc., before you start to get tired. Just like in boxing or football, people need breaks. You need a breather and a drink, essentially. So I've covered how that works here. That is line 38 of this first page. And I won't go into that any further. I'm going to get derailed and spend all night talking about that. That's all covered here. And then I started to cover spell seeds. They're the building blocks of magic spells. I've torn out spell books, spells known, the class lists, and the variables from the Wizard, Druid, Bard page. You now have spell seeds, spell components, spell points. So things like range, target, duration, those are all spell components. And then you have spell seeds, acid, fire, air, the elemental, plus force, heal, life, death, destruction. All of these are your building blocks, like Legos, for when you build a spell. You take acid and you put on close range, and you put a 10-foot square target and a 1 round per caster level component on it, and you've got a pool of acid at range that you throw on the ground, and it lasts there for a while doing damage. You're building spells like Legos now in this setup. I have added a note regarding damage that I mentioned. No longer dex to damage. So natural attacks, I have adjusted how natural attacks work, and you're going to want to read this if you play a character with natural attacks. If you want to build your hybrid werewolf type character, I am allowing the race builder with this. You can do so if you use natural attacks. Read this. Picking abilities. This is important for you to read. Feat tax changes. This is important for you to read. You have a choice between strength, standard to attack, or you can forego that and gain weapon finesse and agile maneuvers for free at creation. You have a choice between power attack or piranha strike at creation for free, depending on which you chose and won. All of the improved maneuver, improved bull rush, improved grapple, etc., have been condensed into one singular improved maneuvers feat. So if you want improved trip, you take improved maneuvers and you get improved everything instead. Any creature born with natural attacks comes into adulthood with an improved unarmed strike, as considered to be auto-proficient using their body to strike, and needs not take said feat in order to qualify for something else down the line. This means that any feat with improved unarmed strike as a prerequisite, any critter will be able to take that feat without having to spend a feat and improve unarmed strike. They know how to use their body as a weapon. Crossbow users and thrown weapons specialists. What this means is if you are someone who uses these weapons more than 50% of the time, like 80% of the time, it's your standard. The knight uses the sword and board 80% of the time. The elven archer uses a longbow 80% of the time. the dwarf cleric who uses a crossbow 80% of the time, or the rogue who uses throwing daggers 80% of the time. This is what you guys are for. So crossbow users get rapid reload, throwing weapon specialists get quick draw free. Those are my feat tax changes. Patch notes. I mentioned on my forum, if I make a change to this hack, it goes right here. And for the most part, I put in the cell and the tab and then a brief description. I don't always have time for that, but for example, I replaced all of the weapon familiarity and training on all races. You'll see why in just a second. I've added some things to the race builder. I have recosted every race in Pathfinder. Hit point tables is really simple. Sattercock did this for me. This is your number of hit dice and the cost, so that if we start a game at level 10 or you level up, this is the total cost for a barbarian's hit dice: 10d10, 10d12, 30 XP. So this is the cost for each. D4s you actually gain XP. D6 is free. So the wizard with D6 hit dice doesn't pay any XP for D6 hit dice. The cleric with D8 only pays 1 XP per hit dice. This is my races sheet, and you'll see it stretches off the page here. You're going to need to scroll over as well as down. That's important. I have adjusted all of the base races so that they all are 12 RP. Some were 6, some were 7, some were 8, some were 9, some were 10, some were 11, some were 12. And then you go down to the ASMR. Everybody wants to pick that because, yeah, they're 15 RP and not 9 RP. They're stronger than everybody else. So I've assigned an XP cost to every RP over 12 for this. So Drow costs more. The Drow Noble costs 67 XP. If you want to play one, you cannot afford it at first level. Some of my custom races I've added here for some of my older games. And then, like I added Bite and Kneecapper to the Goblin in order to bring them up to 12 RP. I have added Swim, Expert Climber, and then pulled out weapon familiarity and gave them Powerful Swim to the Gripply. So now they have a swim speed of 40, and they can cling to walls with their feet and hands, and they can, they're expert terrain movement little frogs. So I added extra armor, natural armor to Oriad. So they get +3 natural armor, and they get Stone Seer. Stuff like that. So just read that when you pick a race, dwarf, I gave them Craftsman and Unstoppable instead of weapon training. So they get toughness as a bonus feat, a +1 to fortitude saves, and they get a +2 bonus in all crafted profession checks. That's your basic dwarf now. I added Envoy, Sprinter, and Fleet-footed to my elves. This is, all of these things have been adjusted. Make sure you check that. Race building. We're going to go to the Pathfinder race building, which I've linked right here. So this is right off the SRD. What we're going to do is this right here, power level and RP range. You need to follow this, okay? You can ignore traits per category. Just ignore how many traits per category. You can do whatever you want as long as you meet the like monstrous 20 RP or higher. Okay, I have taken this list, everything here that as you scroll down, it has all been moved here and condensed, so you don't have to read as much, but you can always click this link and go right to the page to see what that gives you. Okay, so if you want to play a dragon that costs 10 RP and you get this, the way it does that for the SRD is kind of frustrating. So you get this if you pay 10 RP, and it says right here 10 RP. I have made some cost adjustments here, you'll notice that. Construct and Undead, for instance. Where's that? Undead is 16 here. I bumped it down by 1 for 15 on my hack. Size. I have added huge, which costs 10. Then you see 7 here, etc. I have put the where is it? Ability score modifier quality, ASMQ stuff here. I have transferred the ability score racial traits here. You'll see this bonus can be taken multiple times, but each additional time it is taken increases by 1 RP. Its effect stack. I have put that down here for you. And just in generic, this is what it costs to get this. All the way to plus 20. It's super expensive, but I put that down for easy calculation. And then I've listed all of the traits. It goes down for pages and pages of traits. I have listed all of them, and some of them I have recosted. So I've also added some things. For example, let me go to find Pounce. I have added Pounce, Poison Spit, Powerful Build, Rake, Reach, Striking Tail, Thorn Tossing, stuff like that. I've added some things here that are not on this page, so that if you want to make a plant type creature that spits poisonous thorns, you can do so. And then we get into like vulnerability, prehensile tail, grabbing appendages, multiple arms, quadruped if you want to build like a lion-based 4-armed centaur creature. You can do that here. It's in your wheelhouse to be able to build in this game. This is the bread and butter here. Tab, core creation. You have your hit dice costs. You no longer get a +1 to any attribute score you want to use at every 4 hit dice. You choose whether to purchase that and when, to a cap of 5 inherent boost. You can only purchase up to 5 across an entire character's career of the inherent boost, and it can be applied to any, and I don't mean you can buy 5 strength, 5 dexterity, 5 con. It's 5 to all of them combined, and that your cost here per, and then the total overall. Proficiencies now, I have pulled all weapon training from races. No longer do you need to pick a class level like fighter or spend feats. You simply pay XP, and it's cheap. All simple is 1. All martial requires all simple, and it's 1. 1 exotic requires all simple and martial, and it costs 1. There's also the monk package, which is a broad array of monk stuff. And where can I monk proficiencies? I'll go straight to monk, if Google will let me. So monk proficiency right here. If you buy the monk, you get access to all this, which is a neat deal, but it's the only way I can make the monk cost effective. Light armor and shield is 1. Medium armor requires lights and shields is 1. Heavy armor, light, medium, shields is 1. We're going to do exotic armor. We're going to add one right now because I keep forgetting to do this. 1 exotic armor costs 1. So exotic armors, like in Races of Stone, I allow some 3.5 books. Races of Stone has Mountain Plate, for instance. You would pay 1 XP after getting the above. Here, you have saves. You have a cost and a minimum hit dice for each save. So in order to get 2/2/2 for monk saves, you need to have 1 hit dice, and it costs 3 for each. So that's 9 XP to get 2 fort, 2 reflex, 2 will. You choose what you want to invest, when you want to invest it, with a cap based on how much XP you can spend and this minimum hit dice. Undo, cookie. Base attack bonus, the same thing here. The number you are purchasing, the cost, the minimum hit dice to buy it, the total XP spent. If you want to get 20, it's going to cost you 110. Traits, you get 2 free. If you want more, you pay XP. If you want to have 10 traits, it's going to cost you 20 XP. Traits, only at first level. That's important. Proficiencies. This is the only thing on this page, proficiency buying, which will disable your ability to continue buying RP. And we're gonna step to that real soon. Skills are sold in bundles of 6 ranks. There's a cost per bundle that scales every 4 packs. So keep that in mind. The only reason I do this is because I don't want to have to charge you 1/6 of a rank of an XP every time you buy a rank. This is the cost, 6 for 1, that I've allocated in my system. So a skill monkey can get a lot of skills cheap, 15 XP for 54 ranks, and then you can have every skill known to man at 1 rank at level 1 if you want. Feats. I have broken feat costs into 2 different categories. There is your standard character that uses spells. You pay in this Q and R column. You get 1 free, and then there's a scaling cost. So the first 4 are 1, the next 3 are 2, the next 2 cost 3 XP, the next 2 cost 4 XP, etc. They keep getting more expensive. The spell-less character, like a monk, a rogue, a fighter, a barbarian, gets a perk. They get 4 free feats initially in order to pick up things that they need to function and give them options. Afterwards, this lowers their scaling cost, and at your 25th feat, the wizard will have to spend 126. The fighter only spends 77. So there's a difference in XP cost drastically between the fighter and the wizard if you want a butt ton of feats. There's notes here, just basics. Your hit dice is the cap for all abilities with scale. If you have 5 hit dice, your cash level, sneak attack, class abilities, spell points, expenditure, etc. all capped at 5. That's the key master rule for this system. I tell you what your hit dice cap is. You start at 1. You cannot purchase anything that is a higher hit dice requirement than 1 until I let you know you have hit 2 or higher. Classes with alignment restrictions, keep those restrictions for abilities pulled from those classes. I.e., if you want lay on hands, you need to buy into the paladin code. You need to buy into that lawful good alignment. you need to purchase the requisites for lay on hands, and you lose those if you do not follow the code. This means if you want a lawful neutral for a monk druid, you cannot pick up chaotic barbarian abilities. You could be a lawful good monk paladin, but that precludes you from both barbarian and druid. Cleric archetypes, which cost you a domain to work, as follows. You can ignore this. I have pulled domains, I have pulled arcane schools, and I have pulled mysteries. They, put simply, are something that I will consider adding in at a later time once I have balanced my magic system and figured out if I want to keep it that way, but for now it complicates things with stuff that would take too long for me to get going, and their cost is skewed due to the fact I've ripped out spells known. You don't get that anymore, and I would have to redo the cost, and I don't have the time for that right now, so ignore that. This is something you want to read. Archetypes and stuff like that. Not everything is just a la carte, pick what you want if you can afford it. You're going to want to read this here. Special abilities. Everything that is, let's say, everything here that is on this chart that is for the monk that goes under special, that's listed here on this chart. Access to weapon specialization, monk AC, advanced learning, arcane reach. I have made armored mage a thing. Any magic user needs to pay XP listed here in order to be able and meet these prerequisites in order to cast an armor. So if you want one of these abilities, you need to pick it from here, and there's a cost. And if there's an incremental cost, it's laid out here. There are prerequisites. You also, and this is important, you also must meet the hit dice requirement here. So if you want key pool, you have to have 4 hit dice. That's just how it is. If you want, fast movement, you need to be 3rd level, 3rd hit dice. If you want evasion as a monk, you need to hit these 2nd, 3rd, 11th, 12th, etc. here. That's just, it's not listed here. That's a Pathfinder basic. So, if you want access to weapon specialization, that's a 4th level fighter thing. You need to be 4 hit dice. I didn't copy everything over for prerequisites because I hyperlinked stuff. I don't want to get, sued by Paizo for completely copying their setup, and I don't want to get so bloated in what's on my hack that it's impossible to navigate. So everything is hyperlinked, and it will take you to the page just like this. So if you want to know what an alignment aura is, you need that in order to get divine grace. You need that in order to get lay on hand as a paladin. So that will take you straight to Aura of Good. From here, we have my more complex abilities. I have put the Warlock from Complete Arcane, their invocations here, and I have put a reworked Order ability from Cavalier. So let's go to Cavalier real quick. If I can find it here. Here we go. The Order ability was complex in a bunch of things that really, I feel, don't really embody the class. The Cavalier is a mounted knight, essentially, that I don't feel like these were giving mechanically what the Cavalier needs to do well, right? So I pulled those. You can ignore everything here and utterly just ignore that. If you want to play Cavalier stuff, I've altered it. The mount gains the following